tragedy. Not the river, not the rule, not the woman. His mind. Rain fell steadily through the mountain forest. Not violent rain, the kind that slowly enters everything. Clothes, shoes, thoughts. Two monks walked silently along a narrow, muddy path. The older monk moved calmly despite his age, slow steps, steady breathing, peaceful eyes. Beside him, the younger monk walked with perfect discipline, back straight, hands hidden inside his robes, eyes lowered carefully toward the ground. He believed discipline was purity, and purity was everything. The rain became heavier as they approached a river crossing. The water moved violently through the rocks below, brown, cold, fast. Near the edge stood a young woman unable to cross. Her clothes were soaked from the storm, mud covered the bottom of her dress, fear covered the rest of her. She looked at the river, then at the monks. "Please," she asked softly, "I can't cross alone." The younger monk immediately looked away. The rules were clear. Monks were forbidden from touching women, especially young women, especially alone. The older monk looked at her trembling hands for a moment, then quietly stepped forward. Without hesitation, he lifted her gently into his arms. The younger monk froze. Rain hit the river harder. The woman wrapped her arms carefully around the older monk's shoulders as he carried her across the violent current, slowly, steadily, without struggle. The younger monk followed behind in silence, but inside his mind, something had already started. On the other side of the river, the older monk gently placed the woman down safely. She bowed gratefully, then disappeared into the rain, and the two monks continued walking. Silence returned to the forest, but not inside the younger monk. His thoughts grew louder with every step. How could he do that? He is supposed to be a teacher, a master, a holy man. The younger monk replayed the image repeatedly in his head, her arms around his shoulders, his hands holding her body, the calmness in his face while breaking the rules so easily. The rain continued falling. Hours passed. The older monk walked peacefully beside the forest path as if nothing had happened. That disturbed the younger monk even more, because guilt should have existed, but it didn't. The younger monk felt frustration slowly turning into anger, not toward the woman, toward the older monk's peace. By sunset, they reached a small shelter near the mountains. Water dripped quietly from the roof edges. The older monk removed his wet sandals and sat down peacefully near the wooden wall. The younger monk could no longer contain himself. "You should not have touched her." The older monk looked up quietly. The younger monk's voice sharpened. "We have rules for a reason." No answer. The silence made him more emotional. She was a woman. You carried her in your arms, and you acted like it meant nothing. The forest outside had become completely dark now. Rain tapped softly against the roof. The older monk studied the younger monk's face for a long moment, then finally asked, "How long ago was the river?" The younger monk frowned slightly. "What?" "The river," the older monk repeated gently. "How long ago?" The younger monk thought for a moment. 3 hours. The older monk nodded slowly, then said, "I left her at the river." Silence. The younger monk stared at him. The older monk's voice remained calm. "Why are you still carrying her?" The words entered the room quietly, but they hit like thunder. The younger monk suddenly saw what had happened to him. For 3 hours he had been arguing with a moment that no longer existed. The woman had already left. The river had already passed. The event was already over. Yet inside his mind, he was still standing there,
still replaying it, still judging it, still emotionally trapped inside it. The older monk looked toward the rain outside. He said, "Most suffering comes from the mind refusing to release what the moment has already released." The younger monk lowered his eyes, because now he understood. The burden had never been physical. The older monk carried the woman for 2 minutes. The younger monk carried her for 3 hours. And suddenly, his exhaustion made sense. The older monk closed his eyes peacefully. He said, "Some people leave your life in moments." Pause. "But you continue carrying them in your mind for years." The rain slowly softened outside, and for the first time that day, the younger monk became aware of the weight he had been calling discipline. It was not discipline, it was attachment. And attachment, when carried long enough, begins disguising itself as identity.